Okay. All in favor of adopting those minutes? Oh, do I need a,
I'm gonna move her in a seconder. These are just housekeeping.
yeah,
Or you can
okay.
take it
There's
by
been ones-
consensus.
By consensus, adopted by consensus. Okay. Now the juicy part. I'm going to introduce David Van Cedars, who is with Hill and Knowlton Strategies, the authors of our draft plan, Community Economic Development Plan. And David, you're going to give a bit of a presentation, and then we're going to have a discussion, I believe.
That's right. Are
Okay.
you ready for me?
We're ready. Go right ahead.
Okay, so what I just to say, I've only got until 5 o'clock. We'll do our best to get through as quickly as possible. Something very short. Basically, executive summary. So, and just touching on the various sections or sectors. So just to say, obviously, what I got from the documents that you have prepared in the past is that you're really focused on creating.
Can everybody hear David? He's cutting out on my audio.
Same on mine.
Getting out.
Same with me.
Have we lost him? Is he still? No, he's still there. No, no. screen.
David, your mic's on mute.
I think he must be having technical difficulties because
Is he in the city, or is this something you can turn it on and off? Or?
No, he's at home. So I'm getting a lot of different feedback from a couple people. I'm just going to text him to let him know. But he's at home, so his connection should be fine. Let me just text him.
oh, he's
On
back.
my screen,
Are you
it
there,
shows that
David?
He's on mute.
Oh, looks like he's frozen.
I think he's
Okay.
probably.
Did you? It seems like you lost me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're back.
Did I?
Bill.
Did you lose me?
Yes.
Yes.
We didn't. Yeah, David. It was difficult to understand the beginning. You were cutting in and out, and then you froze.
Sure. What I can do to improve that. Just 1 minute.
Vaune, do you want to introduce Sheila while that's happening?
Sheila is a newest member of our committee.
Just go on
Sheila
my
McCutcheon.
hotspot.
Wait, Sheila.
Sheila is the new CFO for the municipality and has just agreed to join our committee. So welcome, Sheila.
Thank you. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves to Sheila? Kirsten, you want to go first?
Okay, Steph, I'm getting your voice is
Here.
really gravelly. Is that the same for anybody else? Yes, okay. I don't know. Is there anything you can do? Because your voice is coming through really rough, like distorted, I guess is the word.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're clear now.
Okay, I've switched to a different internet connection, so I'm hoping that will work.
Okay, so David, why don't you just go ahead then? Thank you.
Okay, so let's just move on to the, obviously the report's broken up into different sectors, starting with the health and wellness sector. And the key recommendations there, you're already doing quite a lot on health and wellness. And so really the emphasis is trying to be more integrated and to tie in to the new health center and create a one-stop shopping for people who have health and wellness needs. Create better opportunities for residents to age in place as they get older, and capitalize on the setting for multi-day, more immersive recovery health wellness programs. So the second one is the local food sector. And any sustainable economy always has a key component being food self-sufficiency. So the idea is to bring all of the players together who are involved in every aspect of food and create a food hub where they can market themselves together, but also they can share costs. They can actually share food resources so that one sector of the food economy then feeds into another one. And then that often includes shared use commercial kitchen. And then there's the idea of getting more marketing benefit from a direct to consumer channel using agritourism. And then finally, improving financial sustainability for individual households through community gardens. The third one is responsible tourism. And here the focus is on really trying to find ways that to allow tourism to flourish, but have less impact on residents, and also to involve as many community members as possible in the tourism sector through sort of smaller festivals and events, and this idea of a village as a venue, and also encouraging low impact tourism from an environmental standpoint, and then creating a broader range of accommodation options to better accommodate the tourists that are coming and provide for a greater range of tourism activities. The next one is arts and culture sector. This is probably the most well-developed on Bowen. And so here it's on improving what's already working well. Again, trying to better coordinate all of the arts and culture activities by creating a concierge service, building on the fact that you will have a new community center with a theater to launch a performing arts program, expanding the range of small arts festivals that involve many people and have lower impact, and then creating an arts school or professional arts college. The knowledge or digital economy sector, that one focuses on improving internet service and cell coverage continuously and trying to always work on that, as that's so key to that sector. Expanding the availability of office and co-working spaces, especially where people want to work outside the home and would otherwise feel like they would need to move their work off island if they didn't have such a space. Creating a collaborative and coordinated adult learning hub, and also making sure that people with lower incomes can access computers so that they can take educational courses and learn and not have their finances be a barrier. The commercial and industrial sector is where we have the two large, long-term sort of ones that have a bigger price tag to them. And one of those is creating one or two more areas that are zoned for light industrial. And the other one is establishing a small secondary marina, boat repair service, and public dock that would allow the commercial industrial sector to create more opportunities for tradespeople and others. The other idea is to create a small trades training apprentice program. The final one, which is a cross-cutting one, is affordable housing. And that's probably the most critical issue mentioned by residents on Bowen. And so there are a variety of ways, and we're actually proposing that this is such an important one that it deserves its own detailed study. Nonetheless, we've included 4 strategies: creating an inventory of price-controlled rentals for employees, similar to what Whistler does and other communities, creating zoning for the establishment of a farm village. So here, this is one that feeds into one of the other sectors, and is an idea that people feel will both improve food production and improve housing affordability and create more jobs. So it's a win-win-win. Creating zoning for a tiny home park or modular home park where the homes are clustered together, residents have access to shared materials, and it's less intensive, but it actually provides a significant amount of housing and would be seen as a great demonstration projects. And then another one is unlocking nonprofit building assets for affordable housing, using a very successful strategy on the mainland, and following on that. And then the cross-cutting strategies, most of those relate to the cross-cutting strategies that we focused on in terms of creating a showcase for sustainable initiatives, deepening collaboration with other Gulf Island communities, and creating a comprehensive assessment of policies and bylaws to determine which ones could be modified to facilitate and implement the strategies presented in this plan, as there were many times residents felt that some of the strategies proposed would be hampered by the current building policies and zoning bylaws. And so in total, I think there were 31 strategies, and I don't want to belabor the presentation anymore and just want to open it up for general feedback. And if it's very specific feedback, like wording changes, I understand that you will provide those to staff. So I'm looking for the ones that are that can't be explained just with edits to a document. Let's see, are you cutting out?
Okay, I'm here.
Oh, good.
Just trying to think about how we should do this. I guess I'm just going to start out with one question that I had, which is, obviously this has been formulated based on all the feedback we've gotten from all the different engagement strategies. And then I'm kind of curious about, I know you would have pulled in, somebody like you mentioned, Whistler for housing and that kind of thing. So you've looked at other probably examples, and you probably know of some good examples, right? So have you incorporated, best practices sort of, or successful practices from other similar communities? Because what comes to mind for me, a couple of things like, having an economic development officer, a lot of communities do, even if they're, or some form of that, even if they're not full-time, or, having a business association of some kind. And those things didn't appear here. Now, is that because nobody in the community mentioned it? Or I just think those are more sort of like standard kind of like economic development resources that could be present in a community that would really help,
Yes, so it's a fair comment. The economic development officer one wasn't mentioned, but thanks. It certainly could be one that we could add. And so therefore I wasn't sure if there was that function was being taken by someone who didn't have that title, but it was basically being done that way. And in terms of a business association, well, you've got sector associations that do address the business areas. And so perhaps having a more formal retail business association might be a worthwhile one to look at.
And just so you know, I mean, there have been attempts at it. We've had some business volunteers who've taken it upon themselves to convene an organization and hold some meetings and that type of thing. But it, as again, when it's all volunteer run, it doesn't seem to last, right? And we have a loose relationship with West Van Chamber of Commerce, but it doesn't really, unless you want to go to West Van and access those meetings or whatever, it's not directly applicable to the island, right? So
Yes.
it's something that actually has been on and off over the years, tried in various formats. And I do think it is.
Yeah.
It comes up a lot where, if the businesses would get together, they could actually accomplish a lot together, right? Without themselves, like if they were organized. So how do you support that, right? Without
Those are good suggestions. Yeah, I'm happy to look at that.
Should we get the members of the committee asking questions or comments? David?
Sure.
Particularly those of you who are not on the working group, it'd be good to hear from you.
Yeah.
Allison has her hand up.
Allison, do you want to go ahead?
Look, she's on mute. Oh,
Keep
there she is.
talking away and I didn't unmute. So I'm looking at 1.5, understanding the makeup of the economy on Bowen and the table specifically.
Yeah.
So there's 573 people have business licenses.
573 organizations.
Have business licenses.
Yeah.
And only 437 of those are on Bowen. Now, in looking at the for businesses that have their place of business or registered offices, Bowen Island, in the chart, you've got 0 employees and there's 181. So if I'm understanding the paragraph a couple up, that is the home owner occupied owner business plus all the off-island businesses.
That's exactly right. And I think I put that comment out where when you see none, it just means that they don't have
928 employees are actually employees of the 437 businesses that are on Bowen.
That's right.
And then you seem to have left out government agency employees.
Well, I'm just going by the ones that have a business license, and that's what we looked at. We weren't trying to say that there were no other organizations, but the business licenses don't include those.
Yeah, I guess is the sentence that says these license holders represent slightly below half of all employed people living on Bowen. And then you said the remainder are government agency employees or people living on Bowen but working off island.
Right.
So I don't know how you figured out the remainder were government agency employees.
Oh, I don't know what percentage of the remainder are, but just that because the government agencies are not included in this list, then
because they don't have business licenses.
Right. I guess the assumption here is that none of them would be because they wouldn't have been counted anyway. So yes, and I can make that correction very easily.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I think the municipality is a large employer, and yet we're considered a government agency, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the school board is a large employer.
Yes.
If you're talking about, but not all the teachers live on Bowen, and not necessarily all our employees live on Bowen.
No, that's a good catch. Yeah, I get it.
But it sort of confuses. So we've got about 1,800 full-time employees that live on Bowen, if I'm reading these numbers right.
Yeah, that's in the phase 1 report. I actually think it's closer to 2,000, but yes, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there was some concern with the phase 1 report about they were working for, Okay, so I understand the chart then. And there's no logic to the, on table 1.2. It doesn't seem to be alphabetized, doesn't seem to be by total number of licenses. So there's no logic to the order that they're listed in.
Well, so in the commentary, what I did say that is I tried to group the ones that related to construction and buildings together. So the construction and trades and engineering And the industrial, since the industrial is mostly to do with building basements and paving and things like that, landscaping and real estate, those are all relate to buildings and the construction sector. And so that's why I grouped them together. But frankly, we could group them in another way. And then you get into home service, wastewater utilities, and then you get into the economic sectors that we're talking about, which is very interesting when you see how few non-Bowen licenses there are when we get into our target economic sectors, because those sectors really are ones that almost entirely employ local people.
Yeah.
And so you can see it more visually here.
Okay, no, that makes more sense. You tend to read the table and then I
Yes.
missed that detail. Apologies.
That's okay.
Now, in several cases through here, you've talked about a 2% tourism tax. Are you
Yeah.
talking about the MRDT?
Yes.
Okay, and so can it be, and Jody's probably the expert on this one. Can the MRDT be taken into general revenue by the municipality to recover zoning costs?
Well, this is where I was hoping that the municipal staff that reviewed this would correct any areas where they would say that actually can't be applied. I tried not to be very specific about that because I actually am not sure how where the fine line is about what you can use it for and what you can't. And so I'm hoping to rely on the staff to correct any things that are factually not correct about whether you could apply that or not to
Okay, yeah, 'cause
specific
there's
things.
two sections where you've referred to the 2% tourism tax, so
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure that,
Can I just add a little bit to that?
okay, you
Sure.
picked up on those two?
Sorry?
You picked up on that 2% tourism tax too, did you, when you were going through?
No, you just mentioned that I might know some stuff. I was just going to add.
Oh, okay.
If you wanted me to, yeah.
Well, I guess I think maybe we'll have to go back and look at those two comments specifically and put them in the response.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I guess I think in some places where we're talking about zoning and things like that, we need to make sure that the report is using the our land use bylaw terms and definitions. So like when you talk about short-term rentals, we've also got a lot of B&Bs. And I think of short-term rentals as vacation rentals, not B&Bs.
Yeah, absolutely. I because I'm not as familiar with Bowen as you are and the exact wording, I'm really hoping to rely on you to correct any of those kinds of things where it's a wording change and just put those into the edited where you bring them all together, and then I'll just make those changes because I know I will have a number of those kinds of errors because I just don't know it as well as you do.
All right. All right, those are sort of, I think, some of my more general clarification questions. I'll let somebody else have a go.
Good, thanks.
Jody, do you want to jump in now?
I can. I think Kylie has her hand up. I can maybe just respond a little bit or taking a little bit on of what Allison said. So the MRDT was originally developed many years ago, and it was for tourism marketing to support marketing. It now does allow some of the revenue to potentially go to affordable housing. So there was an application that was put in a while last January, February, when Emma was there, and it wasn't successful. And so Tourism Bowen Island has, or was it the year before? I'm losing track of where we are because of COVID, but it wasn't successful. And anyways, Tourism Bowen Island, it must have been a year and a half ago. Tourism Bowen Island said that we would continue with that. So to try to get that tax going. So I did have a question for David in regards to when you put those possible funding there. Are you suggesting that's new funding? Or because I mean, for instance, Tourism Bowen Island is only established because we already have some funding from Destination BC. So I think that clarification would help, particularly for somebody, the general public, discerning between what's already being used, what is potentially new funding. I think that needs to be clarified.
Okay, what I was trying to do is to identify sources of funding for these strategies, which are all generally new initiatives. So respecting that there are budgets in place for a number of existing initiatives, but that when we're talking about these new ones, some of them might be able to be dealt with existing budgets, and that's great. But I'm presuming that many of them will need new ones, and so that's what the suggestion is for new funding sources. Because I think it will be, well, first of all, I don't know if I've got the knowledge, but there could be quite a few existing funding sources for a number of organizations. So to cover those off might be challenging.
Right. So, but I think for the general public, that there needs to be some clarification, because, for instance, like I said, Tourism Bowen Island is already getting funding to do our current initiatives. So,
Right.
so to suggest that there's you could tap in again to get more funding for new initiatives is not necessarily correct, right?
Right. I see what you're saying. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and you know, I think there's other organizations, you know, like the, you know, BIAC and stuff they have. So I was a little bit confused about that, and I think there needs to be clarification about discerning between new funding and current funding, what is allowing organizations to currently what they're using.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Related to these charts and that, for instance, you know, Allison was talking about like chart 1.2 and the licenses, and so I look at the one for tourism, or I look for the one for arts and culture, and I'm not sure for tourism, for instance, 18 licenses for tourism. Who is that? Like, how are we defining, or who is going under the heading tourism?
Right.
I'm a little confused about that.
Yeah, and in fairness, some of them could go under one or another category, and so there was some judgment, and we're trying to do this as expediently as possible. And so if it was a kayaking company, that went under tourism, but I guess you could say that's under health and wellness, possibly. And so we tried to make a judgment about that, but we will provide the raw data. And so if you wanted to go through and reallocate them and then see how that changes it. And so, but in the aggregate, I think they're relatively, in terms of order of magnitude, although some of them could be reallocated to another category.
So are restaurants food and agriculture?
So if it is a restaurant, a food restaurant, yeah, then it would go under food and agriculture, yes, because it's part of the food system.
Okay.
Are those the standard industry codes groupings? Is that?
The standard industrial classification codes aren't that helpful. So I tried to use ones that were more understandable, but because the groupings that you have for the SIC code, if you go down to the 2-digit SIC code, they're not meaningful to most people. So I did use some judgment to assign these to categories to make them understandable, and also to relate to the ones that we're talking about in the plan. And they are relatively inclusive.
I just want to, because I might not get it before you leave, David, just bring up a couple of things that I thought of.
Okay.
One of the things that I would have hoped would maybe be brought up in the economic development plan, which I think people have kind of touched on, is how much development do we want? You know, how much can the resources of the community take? for instance, when I look at the light industrial, in my mind, I think, well, at some point development will stop, but I realistically, it's probably going to go on for decades. I look at the ferry today, the 1 o'clock ferry is way overloaded, and you see double dump trucks and all that kind of stuff because there's so much development going on. So one of the things, given this is an economic development report, I would have hoped that maybe there is some point or discussion about further determining how much economic development and what are the priorities for the community, what's sustainable. And I know that was kind of brought up, but that was one of the concerns when I read that.
So I did try to address that, saying that because this is a sustainable economy approach, the goal isn't to expand the economy. It's to allow the residents to have opportunities for meaningful employment. And it's to respond to the fact that Bowen Island has increased its population every year for decades, and that will continue on. So there will be some development and growth as a result of that. But it's not the goal to try to strive for more development. It's to try to create a more diversified economy. And I certainly can try to make that point more strongly, but that's the idea. So that's why there's no intention to try to answer the question, because what I was hearing from all of the engagement was that we really weren't looking to try to expand the total size of the economy. We're trying to make a better economy, not a bigger one.
Okay.
Great. Okay, let's, thanks, Jody. Let's, Kylie, you had your hand up.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I actually just had a general question about the feedback overall. Is there, what is the, is there a process for us giving feedback? Like, is this the only opportunity, or are we supplying written feedback, or what's the process for gathering our feedback and incorporating it into the plan? Steph?
So the working group is providing feedback, and this group is providing feedback. I will be providing that to H&K together on Monday. So
okay,
this
so
discussion,
written, like, so if I have things to add, I can email it to you? Okay, that was all I wanted to know. Okay.
Yeah, send it to me and I'll get it all together for David. I'm taking notes now and the survey. But anything you want, if you want to do track changes or written or however you'd like, and then I'll get it to David in one lot.
Okay, and sorry, you want it by Monday? Is that what you said?
Yes, please. Okay. That's this group. And then the next phase will be public consultation, which would happen in October. So you're welcome to participate in that as well. It's just nice to have this group framed as the CDC. Where did you go?
Okay, Kirsten.
Thanks. Again, looking at all the work that we've done, I think it's really great. And of course, over the year or so, we've had the opportunity to get feedback from individuals as well. As many of you know, I work in telecommunications, so probably my comment is quite predictable that, we do see as one of the priority areas to be improving internet and cellular service. And I'm just kind of scratching my head, kind of wanting to understand that. I definitely know that broadband services, it's a cornerstone of economic development for any community, rural, urban, or otherwise. And, I think of some of the lunch and learns or the other committee meetings that we've had. Generally, the feedback that we've been getting from business groups is that the upgrade in internet service has made a really big difference on Bowen Island. And, for anybody who's using Shaw service, it's at the same level as what you would find in Vancouver or any of the big cities. So the idea that we're to improve internet service, I don't know where that's coming from. Certainly from cellular service, I can see how the island would need to improve upon that. At the same time, it's probably equivalent to what you would find in many parts of West Van and North Van because of the topography and the trees. So I guess, you know, if we still wanted to keep broadband on the economic development, you know, action item, or, you know, as a strategy, I would almost recommend that we say, you know, maybe to improve broadband services. Broadband services is a kind of a general statement. Maybe there are parts of the island that really do have horrible cellular service that would allow a new committee to really focus on that part of the island. Or broadband services could talk about even services that, that we could offer to businesses and to residents. For example, a digital strategy could be developing an app that if you're a tourist coming across on the ferry, you could download an app, which would then give you access to lots of information on the island. Or a broadband strategy could talk about really giving public Wi-Fi throughout the island so that everybody has connectivity no matter where you are in the village. I think being very specific about improving internet and cellular, I think can be somewhat limiting. And again, personally, I don't even see where the problem of improving internet service, I don't even know where that's coming from. So that would sort of be my suggestion. If we're going to make it a priority, amend it to call improve broadband services. And that way it gives us a more general approach to all things digital, either from an infrastructure or service or technology tool perspective.
But Kirsten, is your point on broadband the same as your point on cellular? Because I know, like, if you're around the Cove now, you can get gigabyte speeds, but is that available everywhere on the island given infrastructure differences?
Yeah. Shaw has infrastructure throughout the island where they've connected households throughout the island. And because they built a new submarine fiber optic cable a few years ago, it upgraded everybody's services. So if somebody doesn't have access to Shaw services, it's only because they haven't connected and they don't want the connection. So, you know, in the Cove, TELUS has connected many households, but not island-wide. Shaw has connected households island-wide, but they weren't necessarily delivering gig speeds until they built their submarine fiber cable a few years back.
No, but I thought the issue with Shaw was you still have to do last mile, and it was the last mile issue.
No, everybody, everybody has last mile. The issue was last mile was available on Bowen, but bandwidth was restricted. Now on Bowen, the highest speeds you can get are 1.5 gigabytes for a household. You can get higher speeds if you're a business customer. Yeah.
Okay.
That's great. I mean, if there is factual information to say that this really isn't lower, certainly I was going off of the fact that there are quite a number of comments to say that it has improved, but it's still not great. And so I presumed that there was still an issue there. But if there is, you know, if that's not true, and I like your suggestions about focusing on improving broadband services. And I could certainly, before a few years ago, there was many people were talking about it would be significantly bad there in the past. And so the idea is just to have a suggestion to keep on top of it and to keep on improving it so that you don't get periods where people are saying, oh, we're really out of step.
I think the problem with that is that we don't know that the people who are complaining if they're using Shaw or not, because she's right. I mean, Shaw just did a huge infrastructure thing, and anybody who wants it can get it. So
You know,
I don't know. I'm tending to agree. I just don't think it's an item at all. We've kind of been through that.
That's kind of my opinion too. I don't think it's an issue, and I think to dedicate a new committee and effort in that direction, I think is a bit of a waste of time.
Yeah.
Unless there are people who feel strongly about cellular service, but again, if you do highlight cellular service, it does mean that the carriers will be building telecommunication towers on Bowen. So is that really something that we want to go to, or do you just leave it to the telecommunication carriers to then identify that this is a population they want to invest in? I don't know. But you know, if we really want to keep cellular service there, or if we really want to touch upon, access to high-speed internet services. My recommendation is to just make it improve broadband services in general, which can then encompass Wi-Fi, cellular, as well as other digitals, or quite frankly, remove it completely, because I think there's other things that we should be focusing on that I think are far more dire in terms of needing our attention and probably our resources.
You mean more dire in the digital economy sense, or just generally?
Well, I mean, when I'm looking, this is a very ambitious list of like a strategy plan. It's ambitious, it's big. It's going to require, I always think when you're developing a strategy, we can all brainstorm lots of ideas, but at the end of the day, you do want to create your priority and be realistic about the resources you have, both in terms of volunteers and time and money.
Yeah, and I hear you, and I totally agree with that. The plan.
Out again.
So when improving internet service was put on the agenda a few years ago, that totally made sense. And thank God so much investment and so many upgrades were done, because I think during COVID-19, a lot of the people working remotely and a lot of the businesses on island would have really suffered. So we're in good shape. Is this really where we want to continue to dedicate our time and our energy, or are there others that are probably of a higher priority?
I agree. So generally speaking, I would be happy just to have a plan with about 20 strategies, and so we can easily take them out. It's easier to have a longer list and then find that some of them aren't applicable and then just take them out. That's okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Kirsten. Rod, I think you were next.
Yeah. And prior to the discussion about broadband and communication, my thought was towards whether we should be actually talking more about attracting more of the digital economy to Bowen, and that, looking at some sort of initiative where we define Bowen, what our strengths and weaknesses are. So for instance, my thought would be we're a place where high-tech workers like to live already, and letting, when we talk about economic development, and Jody talks about tandem trailers going off the island and clogging up the ferry, it's a very different discussion than talking about inviting Vancouver type or international type digital companies, whether they're developers in all kinds of different areas, to consider settling here or settling some of their employees here, or giving it as an option, to potential contractors or employees who might be working for them to live in a community like this. So that's where my mind goes, is how can we showcase the quality of life and the resources that we do have here to the digital economy to bring that type of employment opportunity, or people who are working in the industry to Bowen.
Okay, thanks, Rod.
Maureen? Put your hand up.
I think Allison might have been before me, Vaune.
Okay.
Well, I'm up for second round, so you should go first.
Okay. Just to say that I support Kirsten's comments, and I think that the willingness of municipal council to support the establishment of a committee focused on this issue would probably be nil. We spent a lot of effort in last term over about 2.5-year period looking at this issue, and one of the outcomes from that, and forgive me if this has been said already, I'm a late arrival, but one of the outcomes of all of that discussion was significantly improved internet connectivity on island. And as somebody who for the last 18 months has managed to continue to work at my full-time job teaching, I just really appreciate the improvements that were made, because that would not have been possible before that the Shaw upgrades and really the close look at what we actually have as internet connectivity. So the feedback that you may have received about improving it is really, from my perspective, not paying a lot of attention to the improvements that have been achieved. And it's not something that as a council member, I would be prepared to spend further time on.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. Allison?
Well, I guess just picking up on Kirsten's comments and Maureen's, I do find the lack of cell coverage in the middle of the island very frustrating. And it's causing problems. We want people, because our bus timing is erratic because it goes with the ferry, and you're standing there waiting for a bus, and TransLink's got this next bus app, but because the cellular coverage isn't good in the middle of the island, the next bus app doesn't work. And then people are standing there frustrated saying, is the bus coming, or have I missed it, or that sort of thing. And if they happen to be in the middle of the island, they can't use the next bus app to go and or get Wi-Fi cell coverage to go and check the ferry schedule to see if the ferry was running late, which might be the reason. So I'm not sure about using the word broadband. I mean, I just think would be, upgrade, still improve the holes in the island for cell coverage for safety too. I mean, somebody, and I'm wondering if the people that are complaining about internet are complaining because they're trying to do it with their cellular data rather than
in that case, then maybe make a reference to wireless service, either it be cellular or Wi-Fi, but I would differentiate it from, internet.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, just so that council's aware, if you do articulate that you want to improve wireless service, that will most likely mean that you're inviting telecommunication towers to be built on island. And that's the way you improve service. And I'm sure the companies would be happy to do that as long as you have the support from council.
Okay, thanks.
And there has been community blowback on that for health reasons, right? People are sensitive to the
911 and.
Did we not just get word though that they're putting a repeater up on top of Mount Gardner to improve cell coverage on Bowen? Is that
No, that's for the emergency radio for the fire department. We just got a grant for that.
Yeah, it's radio technology for when, my understanding, for when the cellular functions fail.
Okay.
And my other sort of general question had to do with back in the intro columns, which I can't find right now, on the purpose of the project.
Yeah.
Did you just put in plans and ideas that came from the community consultation? Because the way that intro, it seems to work somewhere that it leaves me with the impression that if the plan was developed from the community consultation process and not from the input received during that, not, from, I guess, other thoughts. And that was my other question. I mean, the survey was only completed by 185 residents. So, and then 125 people attended the topic sessions. And I'm sure there was overlap between the two of those. So it really wasn't a really large input from the community. And we've got what, 3,600 residents. And if you knock off 1,500 for kids, which is probably way too many, that just doesn't seem like a.
Well, from our perspective, we did receive quite a diversity and number of comments when you add up all the different methods of engagement, emails that were directed to us, the Citizen Lab comments, the various meetings, the surveys, and so it actually was relative to other plans. It was a good amount of input that we received, but I'll make sure that we also did interviews with selected individuals and even off island, and then we used our own knowledge of sort of interesting economic development initiatives that are happening elsewhere and that all that fed into the plan. But I'll make sure that the
Yeah,
purpose
it's
of the
that last
project
sentence
states
I
that.
found it. I can't read my own handwriting, which is part of the problem. Steph will attest to that one. The last paragraph in 1.2 says the purpose of phase 3 was to use that input to create a community economic development plan. And you're talking about phase 2, which was the community input. And maybe you
Well,
could
that
quantify
was true, but I guess I should just state that it wasn't it wasn't
a
exclusively
major,
that.
or major input or something, the thought,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
guess you're in the study methods that you've listed dozens of economic development suggestions. Could you quantify that a little bit more? Like, was it 200, 300?
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a numbers person in account,
Okay.
but it just didn't seem to me to be, a huge response looking at the survey numbers and guessing that there was probably overlap between that 185 and the groups that attended the focus session.
Okay, thanks, Allison. Anybody else have any comments?
I think we've got Jody, Jamie and Kylie, but it looks like Jody might have something to do with what Allison was saying. If not, you're behind Kylie.
Oh, so I see your hands up. Okay.
Sorry, I can't find my digital hand. They were before me. I'm sorry. I don't know where my digital.
Under reaction?
Jamie.
Okay, I'll go. I'm not sure if I'm missing something in your report, David, and I'm pretty new on the island, so I'm not sure how to explain this, but to me, it would feel important if we knew who the people are on the island, whether they commute to work, whether they work on the island, whether they're retired, all those sort of categories, because they all have different needs. And probably different needs and what how they would feel about this report. Did I miss that in the report, David, or is there a way to find that information?
So that's the phase 1 report where all of that numerical information about the segmentation of how many people we have employed with different education levels, and really trying to understand that. So yeah, that sits in that, and certainly we read that and drew on that, but we didn't repeat that information.
But is that just from the people that responded, or is that can we find that
No,
information
that's
from
stats? Economic. That's from census data for that phase 1 information. Yeah.
Okay, so David only has a few more minutes. Kylie, do you want to go ahead?
Okay, thanks. Hopefully, just to comment, I just felt that a lot of the suggestions to me needed to have included a sense of scope, because I found a lot of the ideas, there's a threshold where below which they won't work and above which they will. And I find this is a big problem with Bowen's economy, is that this idea that we have challenge of scale. And so I'm just wondering if scale came into consideration at all when looking at any of these strategies.
Or market size.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's a bit of a subjective thing, because it's hard to know how far the community will take it. Some people will say we aren't going to get very far focusing on food production because there's not much in the way of food production happening. But at the same time, there's quite a bit of land available for that. And there are all kinds of different things that don't require land, such as value-added food processing. So the sense is that some people would say, well, it's not going to ever get to a scale, but at the same time, if you did develop a real strong food economy, I think it would have good scale. So it's hard to know sometimes, to put it in knowing, okay, can it go significantly from where it is or not? But certainly we tried to consider those ones that we thought could get to scale, even if they currently don't. And those are fair comments to say. I'm struggling to sort of see how this one could work or would have enough scale. Please put those comments to us, and we'll consider them in the feedback. So thanks for that, Kylie.
Okay, we probably only have time for one more. Jody, do you mind if we just hear from Sajid?
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Here, I'm going to turn on my camera and I hope it doesn't cut out, just so you can see me as well. Sorry?
Go ahead. You can see you.
Thanks. Okay, good. Yeah, thank you so much for putting this together. I know it's a lot of work, and by yourself and the committee and the community as well. And so I know that this is a plan, and it's mentioned that, you know, this document is just a plan, and executing on this plan is really the big challenge, right? And that's for the CEDC, the municipality, and the community. But in light of that, I mean, I think it'd be prudent to have some more details in the document that outline some of the background of the ideas, so that we don't go down any dead ends. Kind of like what Kylie had said. Like, there's a lot of ideas. Some, you know, obviously the personal opinion for all of us. Some of them I think are really good, and some of them I don't. But I do feel that, you know, it would be like for example, the supply of agricultural. Was the supply of agriculture and the viability of agriculture considered when making those recommendations? Some of the agricultural recommendations I think are great. I grew up, you know, in a farming family, so I've got some experience locally of how farming works, and good luck to anyone on Bowen who tries to do it. It's difficult in a larger scale, anyways. And so I'm just curious if that was considered. Again, just kind of making sure that this document doesn't just become another economic development document that gets put on a shelf, like some executable, try to make this document as executable ready as possible. I think would be prudent. I think, and I don't think we're quite there yet on a couple of things. And I think Vaune picked up, said earlier, perhaps even including some examples of some of these ideas that have been successful in other communities. That would also help us, like some starting points, like, okay, cool, this has worked somewhere. You know, let's, if that's worked somewhere else, like, will it work on Bowen? And maybe put our efforts on those ideas. Again, because it's such an exhaustive list, it's hard with our limited resources to know where to start. And then one, I'll skip a couple because I can just send them later. But one, I think, you know, I think it's prudent that we include some form of Indigenous partnership or Indigenous ecotourism opportunities on Bowen. You know, we're part of obviously the Squamish Nation, and then recently with UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in the Howe Sound. I think that there's opportunity there for Bowen to be a part of that as well, and also just with funding partnering with Indigenous communities for funding, especially for some of the arts and cultural programs. So I think we should definitely include that.
Great,
Thank
thanks, Ajit. David, you have to go now.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. Is there any one last?
I think I'm just going to say if you don't mind, the last overarching, I think, feeling from our working group especially is that it's such a big list. It feels overwhelming, and what we're going to be doing in terms of the community consultation is trying to get more focused, because I know numbers of us feel that it's going to be daunting, you know, if we try to say that this is our plan. It's so ambitious. And yeah, I think we all have to work to getting it much more focused. Just, you know, following on what Sajid just said, it needs to be more focused, I think, is that what we're going to be working for.
Yeah, fair enough. And as I said, it's quite easy to just take ones out and use that as a way to focus it. It's easier to take them out than to add them in and then sort of go through a process to figure out whether those new ones are acceptable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Take care. Yeah.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Before David leaves, I just wanted to clarify, we are part of the House on Biosphere. I wasn't sure what Sanjeet was saying if we were part of it. We are.
Thank you for clarifying that, Alison. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if we were, but thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Welcome, Edward.
I tried to sign in at 4 and it said the meeting began at 5.
Well,
So
that's weird.
yes, I know.
Oh, that's too bad.
I think
I've been
that's
thinking,
because it
actually
was.
we took a early ferry to get home for the 4 o'clock. So I don't
And then-
know what happened.
Yeah, because in fact we were able to start at 4.
Were you? I
Yeah.
did about 3:53, 3:55, and it said host meeting will start at 5.
Oh,
So I don't
no.
know.
I'm sorry.
So Edward, what would you have said if you had been here at 4?
I have no idea what the context of this was. My feeling, and I mentioned that to you, this is all well and good. I think a list of 35 strategies is too many. I would, I think there's a number of those that don't need to be included for the health center that's taken care of. The notion about an arts and culture, the Hearth is working hard on that. What was the other one? Those two the marina, the marine workyard. Why is that in there? We have a marine workyard. I mean, it's so I would have liked them to have done one more cull maybe, and cut it down to less than 35. And I've mentioned this before. I was not surprised. I have not read it thoroughly. I've spent about 50 minutes looking at it. I perused it. My sense was it's kind of what I expected.
Yeah, and that was
And my expectations were not high.
you weren't able to come to the
Pardon?
working group meeting.
Pardon?
You weren't able to come to the working group meeting.
Well,
but that's,
no, again, a schedule. I mean, I
Right.
was at a meeting and so
Yeah.
something's going on with the scheduling. Steph's been very good. I have a ghost calendar somehow in my on my computer that we haven't been able to get out. So when you do those invitation accepts, it doesn't always go to my calendar. But so I don't know what's going on. I really
Okay.
don't. I'm disappointed. I would have liked to have heard this.
yeah.
Well, I guess
we do have
Pardon? Were my brief summary, was that, did
Okay,
anyone
so
disagree with that?
No, the working group really came to that conclusion as well. And so that's why Steph came up with, even our group, our committee doing this little survey on these items, because we realized that there needs to be priorities identified here. And a lot of these things can just get right off. It's too much. It's a shopping list to put out, and it's not what we want. So we're going to have to, it's never going to be what we want, but we are going to try and focus it, which is what I was trying to graciously say to David. We're going to try and focus it so that's how else can we poll the community? Let's put a survey out with 30 things on it and see what priorities pop up, right? That was our thought, because how else are we going to do this? There is too much here, and it's not prioritized or focused enough. Yeah.
We talked about going through it ourselves and pulling things like the marina, the health center, that really they're just place takers.
Well, that's interesting, because Steph happens to know people in the community who are really in favor of that marina idea. So,
but we have one.
We have two.
We have a marina repair yard.
And I think we have a timeline thing going on here, which is that H&K was hired to deliver a report to council for its adoption or its receipt. And the questions, and they're responsible for doing that, given the input that they get from us. And we have been asked to provide feedback to staff that can go back to H&K, and they will do what they can do with that feedback. And then there are subsequent steps that, as a group and as a larger community, we are responsible and we would want to move forward with. So I think what's important is that we provide as much feedback to the people we hired to develop a plan, much feedback as we can, and then we receive the plan, and it'll probably get referred from council, and then we figure out what now. I mean, I'm sorry, I missed the first half hour or so of this meeting as well. And one of the real concerns I've had has been about implementation. And in the report, the implementation steps, the first step is to convene a committee. And I don't know if this was brought up in the discussion, but the first step being to convene a committee ain't gonna cut it for me. That just doesn't make sense. We have a multitude of committees already. We have this committee. If we need to strengthen input from different sectors of the community, then we strengthen this committee. We have arts. We have a couple of arts representatives. We don't have somebody who comes from the health center. We recruit somebody from the health center. But I think it's just really important that we just give the best feedback we can to the people we hired to develop a plan that may or may not be accepted, but at least will be received. And then we figure out what our role is next. There are, when you read through the plan from the perspective of somebody who wrote this who doesn't live on Bowen Island, who had to assimilate a huge amount of information. I mean, think about how long it took all of us to kind of navigate our way through the acronyms on this island and the Facebook groups on this island. There are like tons of them. There's a lot of good stuff in this. There's a lot that we could go through and say, this doesn't work. This is wrong. These people couldn't do that. I mean, we can do that, but that's not going to advance us. What's going to advance us is getting to the point where we've given our feedback, they've done their best, it goes to council, council decides, it probably comes back to us, and then we move forward.
And when it comes back to us, does it come back to us for implementation? Is that was the original plan, wasn't it?
And I think that we had expected that we would get more direction, implementable direction about implementation. And I don't think we've got that in this report at this point. Strike another committee, no.
No, I think it will come back to us, and we will do our best to, again, I think, it's a good outline for a strategic planning process for our annual, what the committee will focus on each year, right? And now we have our list, and I think once we get some more feedback too from the community, that will be even more honed. And so we will work with it, is my feeling, and set our own priorities and try to make things, a few things happen, basically. Yeah. There's 3 people with their hands up. I'm just wondering if that's current. So Allison, Jody, and Sajit.
Well, mine's current because Maureen started. We're sort of in a timeline now. And I don't think this version of the plan, there's a lot of typos and some inaccuracies and things in there that have to be taken out of there. So version 2 has to be developed before it can be put on a council agenda or linked to a council agenda or sent out for public comment. So if we get all our feedback back to them by the 20th, will they be able to turn around to version 2 by the 23rd? Because that's the sort of last deadline to get it linked to the council late items agenda, which would go out on the 24th, if we're going to stick to the 27th council meeting.
I was
you know,
going to talk to
start the
them.
public consultation right after that.
I was going to talk to them after this meeting about that.
Yeah, but I guess, I mean, I'm just not comfortable with sending the version we've got with just some typos fixed out for public consultation. I think we need to.
Yeah, so you're going to be working on that, right, Steph? Yeah.
Are you looking for agreement from the group, Allison?
Well, I guess I'm just saying, I mean, it sounds like Kylie's got some pretty specific comments, and I don't know about it. I know I do. And I think Liam probably had some when he started looking through it. And I think Maureen does. And it sounds like Ed probably does if he had started to go through it. So I can get mine in by the 20th, but I guess, can they turn everything around in 3 days is the question. And if they can't,
so I'll ask them.
Then we sort of shorten the public consultation period and still aim to get it onto the council agenda for October 12th and then go from there.
Okay, I'm a bit lost in the dates here, but I'm trusting that you.
Yeah, we haven't really
talked
been
about-
involving the committee in the approvals timeline just because it's such a sort of corporate operational thing. So unless
We were
anyone
aiming for the
objects.
September 27th council meeting to say, here's the engagement plan and engagement starting in 2 days.
We worked out a schedule that we'll get this to council by the end of the year. The thing that is compressed is the amount of time for public comment on the draft. So that's something that you need to be aware of.
And we're
Those,
going to get,
sorry.
and the plan is to put the entire 56 pages out for public comment?
Well, it would be a link to the council agenda and it would be there in the public, and some members of the public will look at it, some of them won't.
Okay.
Well, the idea is to put out a survey to the public to prioritize them, just as the same as what we've just done, saying 1 to 5 and trying to get some indication of, how we can hone it down, basically.
Have we seen this draft of the survey?
The one we just did, the one that Steph just sent
I
around.
understood from Steph that wasn't the one that was going out to the public.
We were in our working group, we had said that we thought that was an excellent idea, because how else, if you just put the whole thing out to the public and ask for comment, it's going to be really difficult to manage.
No, I
So
meant survey that we got was not the same survey that was going to go to the public.
I think that survey was meant for this group specifically, and then the public was going to be more general of what's missing, what did you like?
oh, okay,
What didn't you
sorry,
like?
sorry, I had
Sorry,
sorry, I had thought we were going to also ask them to do a 1 to 5, just to try and get a better
well,
idea of priorities.
I'm curious. When I actually did that 1 to 5 survey, I might as well have thrown my hands up. It was so. I'm curious about what people's experience was of doing that. I mean, it really was an exercise to kind of focus this committee on what the strategies were that were being proposed in the report, but some concerns arose when I actually did it.
I agree. I looked at some and I'd say, that's a good idea. We could make that happen. Or as I said about the health center, that's being taken care of. So
Yeah.
it was, I'm not sure about the validity of the structure, to be very frank.
Okay, lots of hands up. Jody, do you want to make a comment?
Can I just finish my comments? So my other comment was, we haven't seen the survey or beta tested what it is they're going to put up on survey, whatever it is, which I hate, Citizen Lab or whatever it is. Yeah. So
I think it's really just those 3 questions I gave you and one more. I'll try to find it. It hasn't been finalized yet.
So it was open-ended. It wasn't going to produce, quantitative data.
Well, do we want to suggest otherwise? Asking for a whole bunch of commentary is not going to help either.
There's some hands up.
Yeah, okay. Jody, go ahead, please.
I think my comments are in line with sort of what everybody's generally saying. When I read the report, I was like, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's nice. Oh, yeah, I agree with that. But I feel like the report was really a report of the consultation process. And to me, it feels like, okay, we had the data, the census analysis, we've had this consultation process, but we don't actually have a plan that's actually based on pulling those things together and saying what's really viable. Like, people are saying here, oh, well, the health center is already doing that. Or, things are being proposed about, a trade school. Oh, well, that might be nice 20 years down the road, but that's really not something. And maybe people think that would be nice right now, but is that really viable? Is that really a priority for I think we have to decide what the I feel like this is like the middle step, and we haven't, it hasn't gotten to the 3rd step, which is really the hardcore analysis. Okay, we've got this, what do we want to do with that? What priorities do we want? What priorities have the community suggested? What are, out of these ideas, what are actually viable? And it needs to be based on sort of analysis, facts, and things like that. Jamie's asking, how many people work here? How many commute? How many want to work here? Where would they want to work? I feel like we're missing information, and I don't think it can be proposed saying that these are our priorities yet. I feel like we're not at that stage yet.
Agreed. That's what the working group came up with, and felt that it would be really important what context we put this out. That this is not we are not saying that we are committed to doing these 30 things in this order, in these timelines. Context is going to be really important. So thank you, Jody. Marcus, do you want to?
Yeah, I guess I got a couple comments. Where should I start? Just sort of picking up on what Jody said and the couple people before that were commenting on the survey. I think our biggest challenge is there's no real vision here, right? And the document doesn't set that vision. It's like what Jody said, it's a report on consultations and feedback from the communities. And we've already gone out to people and said, pick your sectors of interest as priority clusters. So we got arts, food, construction. So we kind of know what the priority areas are. But this report reads as a laundry list of tiny projects that would maybe fit in. So maybe the survey should actually be, if we're all agreed that construction is a priority, pick one of these projects that you think is going to make a difference in construction. Because then people can't list 30, they can only list 1. And then you go, if food is our other priority, what's the one project or the 2 projects that you think we should do for food? Because if we can approach it that way, it's still engaging the community. But at some point, as a municipal government body, we're supposed to be leading. So we can't just keep saying, well, we're going to wait and wait and wait for the community to tell us. They're telling us, but they're telling us a laundry list of 50 things. So at some point, we got to narrow it down to 1 or 2 per sector. And that actually then will become that third step that Jody was saying, that is an action plan. You know, in food, we're going to do these two things. In construction, we're going to do these two things. In arts and culture, we're going to do these two things. Then it's easy to put a Gantt chart together and identify funding sources, because right now there's just too much still sitting on the table to do anything with.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Marcus. I'm going to get Sajid to make his comments, and then I think we're hearing the same thing from everybody. So if everybody could just be sort of thinking about, okay, how are we going to do that? How are we going to do that? Let's hear what Sajid has to say, and then maybe we can have a quick discussion about how we are going to make this happen. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Vaune. That's a great comment there, Marcus. I just, and apologies, I'm gonna play the newbie card. I was wondering if we could all get, or for certainly for me, if I could get the proposal that was signed or was put out, or the scope of work for, apologies, I don't know the company that's doing this for us, but whoever they were. I think that would help me contextualize some of my responses, because maybe what I'm asking for is unreasonable given what they signed up for, kind of thing.
I'll send that right now. And it might even be linked to the report, but I can send it to you right now.
Okay, thanks, so.
Bullet number 3 is really key in that. I'm looking at it. Clearly state achievable and measurable goals for community economic development.
And that was very important for the ministry. I mean, the provincial government is looking for that kind of detail.
I mean, to my mind, you know, as Marcus says, there's no vision here. I mean, it should be, you know, I like if you look at, you know, page 2 or the first page of the executive summary, setting the context for a vibrant, resilient economy on Bowen. I mean, that was our whole goal, is that we want our community to thrive. Right? So how I would have liked to see a short list of priorities that are linked back to how that makes our community more vibrant and resilient. You know, a direct correlation. So this is what, if we're going to decide we're going to do this, how that supports that and how you do it. That's really what we were hoping for. I'm not sure we're going to get quite there. So now we just need to think, what are we putting out to the community? Steph, I thought we were doing it not H&K, although you said they've given you 3 questions or something.
No, it's their job to do it, but it often finds its way back onto mine and Sophie's desk. And we were sort of adamant this time they're going to do it, but then it just sort of found its way back, and we kind of were okay with that. It was, we were going to work collaboratively to come up with the questions. And then it was the CAO who suggested a very broad 3. And then we added a 4th, and then to be discussed by this group, but it wasn't on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, so we still need to work on that with them.
Okay, so we're running out of time today. I'm wondering how best to tackle this. I think if any of the committee members have ideas about, you know, how to do this, perhaps, I don't know, should we have an email conversation? I'm just not really sure how to manage this right now.
About the questions?
How to, I don't know, to me, has everybody seen what these questions are? I haven't seen them.
Consultation starting on the 29th, this key question.
What's that?
Is it going to be ready?
We need to talk to H&K.
Start with the October 11th or 12th council meeting and start the consultation on the 13th.
I think the step immediately in front of us as committee members is to go through this report and provide detailed feedback that can go to H&K. That's the immediate next step. And with this project, it has been one foot in front of the other, which is not an ideal way to do a project, but that's the way it's been. So.
Okay, so if everyone could just get, as you know, like Steph said, you give her as much feedback as you want, and she will give it to them. And they will have to react to it, I guess, right?
So you guys get me all the feedback, every single thought in your brain, all of it, and we'll send it that way. And then I've just sent you the RFP, and I also will find those proposed questions for public consultation and send those around. And regarding timing of consultation, I need to talk to H&K. It's up to them whether we have the version that's on the agenda today. And then because we want to get the second draft on the public agenda for council, we need to find out from H&K if they can handle a quick turnaround. And that'll mean long public consultation. If they can't handle a quick turnaround, it'll be shorter public consultation. That's up to them, pretty much, not us. So I will take that to them and let you know what they say.
Okay.
Is there a backup plan if these guys don't deliver what you want?
Focus on heritage.
Well, no, I guess the backup plan to me, Marcus, would be as long as their plan meets our granting criteria, so we get the money. The backup plan would be we go ahead with that, and then it comes back to the committee to get what I'll say is Bowenized and prioritized.
Yeah, it seems to me that the consultant has not provided their own economic development expertise to the feedback on the public engagement and specific to Bowen.
Because I don't think they're economic development, like the company's more a public relations strategy company. They're not known for, like, I forget who said it before, and I've said this before, is there should be examples in here of what other communities have done really well in these areas. There should be success stories to call out Bowen businesses that have succeeded in these areas, because people need to relate to the story that you're telling. And then, like, way back when we started this, 2 years ago now, the idea was, how do you start it with that idea? Like, Jack and Jill got off the ferry and they moved to Bowen in 2025, and so-and-so has a job at the health center, and this person's doing X, commuting remotely. So you tell the story, you start to create that vision, and then you go into all the detail of how are we going to get there. And like, this doesn't have that story, and it doesn't even have the pathway to get you to that story.
There are some success stories and stories of other communities, but they're buried in footnotes and weblinks. They're not brought to the forefront to actually be inspiring. So
that's and I think that's really important.
Include that
Marcus,
in your
can you
feedback.
please articulate that, and give it to them, and let's see. I mean, maybe they will be able to pull something out and do some of this. So please make sure you provide that. Kylie?
Sorry, really quick. I'm not, what is the hard deadline for the final draft that needs to be delivered to meet the grant?
December
End of the year.
31st.
December
So we
30th,
have
okay.
Our beginning of December, basically, because we don't have a council meeting in the last 2 weeks of December, and we've got a timing line for getting things onto an agenda. So first week of December is the hard deadline.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to have to move on. Do I have any more hands? I don't see
I'm
it.
getting hungry.
Yeah, okay.
So how many of you have a Word doc created called feedback for H&K?
Say again?
How many
My
of you have
Word
like a document that's in the process of writing your feedback? Hands up. Okay.
I've got underlines and scribbles.
Yeah, but underlines and scribbles, they're not going to be able to read if they're like my.
No, I
scribbles.
mean, that's the part for me. I can translate my own underline and scribbles.
Thank you.
But Steph, do you want this feedback in email, or do you want us to go into the Word document and make remarks and comments with the track changes?
That's what I'm going to do.
Editor,
May I suggest that it would be better if you can provide feedback in an email?
Yeah, I don't think that would be manageable if everybody sent a draft changes document.
Yeah, in part because if we're asking them to rethink the document in some areas, there's no point in commenting on spelling errors or little bits of reorganizing if they actually have to rethink certain things.
Yeah.
So substantive feedback makes more sense at this point.
Yeah.
We both.
thank you so much.
Okay, let's quickly move on to the Rural Islands, the Rising Tide Business Services agenda item. So does everybody remember this? This was the Partnership Society is offering a service so that you, as a members, any business can access different kinds of business services at a very reduced rate that are provided by the society. So they have a specific consultant that they're working with who will provide those services at sort of under market prices, but we have to join. We have to pay a membership fee. I think that's what it is, Steph. To pay a membership fee to be able to have our community to access those services.
And let me just further clarify with you and Steph on, because I'm not sure, because there was in our agenda attached on page 63, I was just reading through it, there was a memorandum of agreement that came following the presentation in our last meeting on Rising Tide Business Services.
Yep.
And I don't know if Steph or you have had any contact back with Francine since then.
Yes, we let Francine know it would be discussed at our next meeting, which is this one.
Right.
So we basically put it on hold until we looked at it at this meeting.
Okay, because in that agreement, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I think that there's been developments in the Rising Tide Business Services, not so much in the program or how it was designed to be delivered, but just in terms of how people could join it and what the timeline would be. So there's there is a person hired who's working on that whole program and still working on it as far as I know. The idea behind that letter was that because Bowen has a list of people who are have business licenses, instead of them trying to solicit each one of them to perhaps understand and use the services, they would get an automatic qualification because of their business license. And so it seems like there's some details just reading through that agreement that need to be hammered out, like, well, how much does an organizational membership cost, and and then what are the further fees and structures and so on. And I think that's available from Rising Tide, but I don't think it's in the agreement.
Yeah, so and looking at their presentation, and I think it was that we as a municipality would join, and I don't think the cost was very much actually.
No,
and
it's not very much.
It was very minimal. And then each business that wants to can join for $35. And that gives them full access to all of the business services. The other part of it was that any Bowen business that also wants to offer any services over and above what they're already offering, because theirs are fairly basic, then they become part of a directory, so that other islands, that goes to all of the islands, so that anybody looking for maybe a more complex web development or whatever it is that they aren't offering already, they become part of this database, so anybody can access their service. So in some ways, it's sort of promoting their services, since most people work digitally or remotely anyways. It's an opportunity for businesses to also get exposure to other island clients.
Would it be
that
helpful?
part though? Sorry, that part
Go
not
ahead.
being rolled out until later this fall.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful for me just briefly, because I could kind of perhaps roll this into the update on some of the goings-ons about the upcoming forum that the Rural Island Economic Partnership is organizing, and just share my screen and just show you firsthand what some of the web pages and Instagrams and social media look like, so you can get
Sure.
a better sense. Does that make
Sure.
sense for people?
Would Allison have her hand up before them? Maybe question
Yeah.
before that?
I think we should circle back to this maybe once we understand more, just for the sake of
Okay.
everyone. Does that make sense?
I think we understand. I think it was
Okay.
just that in the first meeting, we were very positive about it. It's just
Mhm.
that we needed to have a further discussion to decide whether to join. And I don't know, I sort of felt like everybody was in support of it. And then the question for us as a committee would be, okay, how are we going to get this information out to the committee, or sorry, to the community, and, you know, make sure that enough people know about it, right? That they can access this.
I remember the presentation. I had a number of questions. But that was a few months ago. And to be honest, I have a very vague memory, but I wasn't necessarily supportive of the service, because I think it was a bit premature when they presented. They didn't have a lot of the facts. So I feel like if we're voting on something, I feel like I really need a refresher, because I remember having some concerns and questions, but to be honest, that was a few months ago. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just seeing here organizational membership was $75 a year.
Yeah, and
Right,
let me say that the whole thrust of this, because there's some pretty good fund raising or securing of grants and so on to put this initiative forward overall, that's been happening through the partnership. And so things are meant to be memberships and cost to attend a forum and to participate in Rising Tide business services are all being kept sort of island style, like attainable by a single person's solopreneur, entrepreneur type person. And that's who they're sort of being designed to benefit. So all of the fees are extremely low. What I think going forward, our role as the Economic Development Committee has been and probably could be in the future is to be a supporting member, like the Southern Gulf Islands, like we have been. The municipality has already dedicated, I don't know the numbers, but $1,000 or maybe $2,000 towards the forum that was in 2019 and the formation of the Economic Partnership last year. And so, those types of commitments I think are good for us to consider, but they're not on the table right now. Yeah, we're just talking about just saying, hey, we put up our hands, we will be an organizational member, and that helps with all of the moving the organization forward. I'm really dying to show you some of these things. Can I show them?
Okay.
Okay.
We've got the PowerPoint presentation in our package.
Yeah, this is because I want to share. I know our time is limited, and I want to share with you some updates on the forum and membership, because that's I think what's most relevant to understand. Okay, can you see my screen there? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so there was an email that you may have got if you've signed up at the Rural Island Economic Partnership page. It went out in the middle of August, so middle of summer, so maybe not. But it was an announcement about growing our members and services. And it talks about both the Rising Tide as a new social enterprise for the Rising Tide business services. And it also talks about the rollout of the Rural Island Economic Partnership membership drive, September 1st, which actually is being delayed to October 20th in earnest, because that's when the online forum is being scheduled for, and that's coming up. That's coming up quickly. So that's something that I think we will be wanting to communicate to our Bowen Island businesses ahead of just the membership and Rising Tide opportunities, because anyone who participates can learn an awful lot more about what's going to be offered then. So the Rural Island Economic Partnership webpage has been updated. And it is continuing to be updated, but there they talk again about the Rising Tide Business Services and what is available. And you're invited to join, which essentially is initially to sign up for updates and your email, which would be free. And then we're also not going to require people to be members to attend the forum, but they'll be encouraged to take a membership, which I think is $35 a year for an individual or a business when they attend the forum and then subsequent to the forum. So that the forum will essentially be the launch or kickoff of the membership drive. And more about Rising Tide Business Services if you zoom in on that on the webpage. But most importantly, Beth Dunlop, who's been hired full-time, is working on social media. And for those who are familiar with Island Comeback, which is the gift certificate COVID program, pandemic program, I guess, not COVID per se, but that platform is essentially not going to be supported going forward. It's going to be rolled into the Rising Tide Business Services and membership for reasons I won't go into right now. But there isn't going to be continued staff. The Island Comeback will continue as an Instagram feed and as a web page, and anyone who's participating can still accept and use the gift certificate program that they signed up for. But the support in terms of trying to sign new people up and grow the program is going to be essentially stopped. So that's Island Comeback. But I suggest that if you are on Instagram, or if you're not, then you get on Instagram and follow both Rural Island Partnership and Island Comeback. Most importantly, again, is this upcoming forum, which is going to be online, 2 days, half days, I could go into the format and so on, but suffice to say that it's coming up quickly. But it's going to be very easy for people to attend and not a large time commitment. And given all the value that the attendees had in the 2019 in-person forum, I think this will be great. There's a fellow named Mitch Mayaguaya, I believe is how you say his name, from Gabriola, who's going to be the event coordinator, or is event coordinator, and he's working on a program and so on at this point. So that's just a quick update on the whole thing. I don't know if Francine is expecting us to get back to her right away about whether we are going to sign her letter as the organization. And what I propose is that maybe Steph and we can put that back in her court and say, is this really what you want us to sign, or just let us know so we can hopefully just move forward that on such a small commitment. Maybe we need to just say that we're prepared to commit up to $200 to be an organization member. And then we can work out exactly what they need from us.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else have any comments about that?
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I didn't hear the presentation, but I looked at the PowerPoint and I looked at the memorandum of agreement, and I'm quite uncomfortable with the whole thing. I don't think the municipality can promote things to its business license membership list. People got business licenses because they're required to have a business license to operate. And so to provide that list to another organization or provide them with access to that membership list, I don't think is something that could be done. And if you're going to join an outside organization, I don't think the municipalities or the committee is the right entity to organize. I mean, BIAC should be a member, and Tourism Bowen should be a member. If we had a Chamber of Commerce, they would be a member. But I don't think it's appropriate for the municipality to go into
that list is
business
public,
services.
That's a public list, right? It's not like
it's a public list
yeah.
that people can go in and search a name under. It's not a public list where all the names and addresses are put out there that anybody can look at and then coffee. And
Okay, but so I don't think we, my understanding was we weren't going to give it to them. We were
I
going to.
well, I still don't think it's appropriate for us to promote a particular program which is a business service, which is competing with services that our people offer here on the island, to our business license members. I think it's something the chamber could promote to its members if there was a chamber, or Tourism Bowen can promote to their members, but I don't think it's a municipal thing. And there is the community charter about providing benefit to business, which we can't do as a municipality.
Okay, Maureen, thoughts?
You're muted.
Yeah. In general, I support what Alison has just said. And I've been trying to sort of think through, the reasons why there would be obstacles to us supporting this particular aspect of the Rural Islands Economic Partnership, which we have supported in the past. But with the rising tides, it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rod, it's a for-profit social enterprise. Is that correct?
No, it's a society, and it's funded by provincial and federal funding, including ICE-T and some other.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, Rod.
It's a BC society.
The Rural Islands Economic one, or Rising Tide?
Yeah, no, the Rural Islands Economic Partnership.
Yeah, that I understood, and we've supported up to this point. It's the rising tides part of it, the business services that could potentially conflict with some of the companies on island, and that gives me pause. So that there's that point, and the other point, the cost of joining this to enable Bowen businesses to have access at a lower cost. The cost for the municipality to join is not high, but I need to be reminded, what is the difference between the cost if the municipality is a member and if a local Bowen business chooses to be a member? Rod, could you clarify that?
Unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me. I'd have to follow up with it. But that is a good point. And so why wouldn't, as opposed to the municipality, because I completely understand what you're saying, island organizations that represent, groups of businesses, why wouldn't they be the organizational members? And, there might be a number of them potentially.
Yeah, and I think the flags that were raised for Alison and myself just sort of gave us pause, and thought that the less problematic way to approach this might be to for individual businesses that were interested to join.
Sure.
So, and is it appropriate for our committee then to recommend that it goes on, the Bowen information? Like, can we put it on Bowen information Facebook pages, that kind of thing? So if any businesses want to take advantage of it, they can. Is that appropriate?
I would put the Rural Islands Economic thing on the web pages, and if it's a service they're providing and they're not making any money on it, it's just to cover costs, then.
Well, they refer to it as a social enterprise. I don't know what that means, whether they make money or not,
Are you talking, now when you say social enterprise, you're talking about Rising Tides?
I believe that welcome page, that one that you just showed us, Rod,
Yeah.
where, new things happening kind of thing, referred to Rising Tides as a social enterprise.
Yeah,
I think it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which is fine. I mean, but I guess, I'm just,
I mean, we
it's
have
another
some-
service available to people if they want to. And then the other side of it was, they also could get some business from it. So it's up to the business to decide if they want to be part of that. But do we just put that information out there somehow, you know, that if you want to join kind of thing?
Why wouldn't you promote the business of website development for 2 or 3 other people on the island that develop websites?
Well, this is the sense. This is what Rising Tide is about. It's like there isn't a battery of staff, or ever intended to be a battery of staff there, who, or consultants or whoever, who are employed by Rising Tide. The people who are hired currently in Rising Tide are hired to architect the program or to put the structure together, but the services would be offered by island businesses.
Okay, that's not my
idea.
understanding. My understanding was there was a one principal person that they were working with who was going to be, because they talk about it being affordable, right? Like they've made some arrangement with that one woman.
That's the starting point. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and then after that, once you're in a project,
that's the starting point.
yeah, they do the basics, and then after that, they hire from the pool. You can hire, you know, you get the pool of people to choose from, right? At who charge their own prices, not the sort of lower entry level kind of prices that they are charging.
So maybe that's the opportunity that we might want to make people aware of, the folks on island who can help to provide those services, that they might want to, get in touch with the principal at Rising Tide. The third concern I had was that when the agreement came over the email, I balked a bit. It's highly legalistic, and it's just much more than I expected from what I thought was a kind of grassroots community initiative. And I thought for sure our committee would not have the authority to sign off on something that had all of those provisos, and that it would need to go to council, and that council might ask, why are we doing this for this opportunity?
Do we need to invite her back for clarification to one of our meetings, do you think, or should we, or do you just want to decide that it's, it's something we can't support as a municipality, but
I don't know. What are the?
Well, I'd be happy to go back to Francine and try to get more clarity on what they're currently trying to achieve, because the efforts that for instance, I'm putting in right now is around this upcoming forum and the membership drive for Rural Islands Economic Partnership, which is not a membership to Rising Tides specifically, but Rising Tides is going to be offered. And I think that's really what's important to our local businesses, is to have the opportunity to connect with other similar businesses who are on other islands, look for partnerships or ideas about what they could and share what they have and so on. So I don't think anyone in the organization, which is just a small board of directors at this point, and a couple of consultants, would want anything that we're doing to get in the way of people being able to engage in this forum, because that's really the meaningful first step.
And that forum details will be coming out shortly?
Yes, yeah, the date has been fixed. We've put in front of the program and event coordinator our ideas, which in very brief is to really focus on island businesses, both success stories and businesses in the, we thought that there are many meaningful destination food tourism businesses, like cideries and like growers and producers, and to get some of those people from the different islands to be on panels, moderated in breakout discussions, depending on how many people attend, and to have, maybe up to 6 sessions over 2 mornings. So that's the basic structure.
Okay.
Just for clarity, Rod, you're talking about the RIEP
This,
again.
yeah, the Rural Island Economic Forum, which is how
Yeah.
this whole thing started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were more onto the specifics of the Rising
Yeah.
Tides MOU.
That's right, and that's what I'm suggesting, especially given our meeting time today and the 1 month from now, the date of the forum is I think if we're going to have efforts around this committee and what we might be able to do, we might be able to on our municipal social media and amongst our own organizations, just sign up to the Rural Islands Economic Partnership page. I think most of us maybe are, like I think Jamie, probably you are, but just so we're getting that information and looking out for it and then redistributing it to our members so people can join and participate in that forum.
Okay, and you will, though, in the meantime, ask Francine just for a little bit of an update about the Rising Tides program, and maybe just give her a brief kind of like what our concerns might be, and then come back. Maybe we'll have it again at our next meeting.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Okay.
that would be great.
Okay, let's do that. Great, thank you. Okay, so we don't have a province update, and Jamie said she has to leave. Jamie,
It's 6 o'clock, so
sorry, Steph?
it's 6 o'clock, so maybe
Yeah.
it's urgent if someone is burning.
Does anybody have anything urgent they want to share?
I'm hungry.
Just that
Yeah,
I want to get on a ferry.
okay.
Mm.
The last thing was the Jobs and Growth Fund. Again, I think that's maybe even going to be relevant to implementation of our plan. So we're not, we don't have our plan finalized. So we can revisit that. Maybe can we make a note to put that on next meeting's agenda? It's not
Okay.
urgent that we're not going to miss out on anything. Okay.
Okay.
Um,
And then I think it would get to get a recommendation from this committee to council regarding the plan, but we could probably do that next month. No.
Well, it all depends on whether or not we're going to be on the September 27th agenda. I mean, and
to
the
provide
recommendation
the
would just be that the
people-
public consultation proceed on the draft plan, right?
I'm going to do something by email.
okay. Okay. I think we're kind of done, aren't we?
Beth, could I have a minute with you before you go? Because I just checked the email that I clicked on and it said 5 o'clock. So I'm not getting updates somehow, some way.
You talking to Steph?
Yeah,
Yeah.
talking to Steph.
Okay.
Well, I'll talk after.
Can we spend a minute to see what, if I'm getting emails or if they're going to another place or?
Are you in
Okay.
another time zone, Edward? I don't know. That's all I'm thinking. If you're in a different time zone.
1969.
The time for this meeting was shifted. It was originally 5 p.m. and then it was shifted to 4 p.m.
Oh, that's
So-
right.
So it's possible that you accepted an invitation, got another invitation, and things got muddled up there.
Okay. I really wanted to be part of that discussion at 4. So,
We
okay,
really
thank you.
wanted you to be there.
Yeah.
So Edward, what is your right email address, just for the rest of us? Is it storytelling?
It's Storytellings.
Right.
Do not use my BIM.
So I'm looking at your name in the list of people that this was sent to, saying 4 o'clock with the agenda and the link, and it's Edward at Storytellings.
Let me look.
Don't know what else.
What time was it?
Yeah, glitch.
I know that
Could be
change-
my fault. It could
And
be-
to end on a positive note,
we don't need to do this. It could be my fault, but I have been getting some things sent to my BIM account, my NERP account, and those are 2 separate things. And so make sure
Okay.
everything goes to Edward at Storytellings.
Okay.
So, and I could have made the mistake. I made a couple mistakes in my life.
Can I add on a positive note and a thank you? I just really want to thank Steph because she has gone beyond what any of us imagined with the CED plan work. It has taken a phenomenal amount of effort and diplomacy and time to
Yes.
keep moving this forward. And she has been there when members of the working group weren't able to be there, and she's filled in the gaps. So yay to Steph. Thank you.
Yay to you guys, of course.
And
Thank
she does
you.
it so consistently.
Really
We
nice
don't
when
even
this is over, though.
Good night, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank
Right.
you.
All
So
right.
Monday
Thank you.
morning, 9 o'clock. Yay.
Yeah.
Feedback,
Happening
feedback.
tomorrow at 9 o'clock?
Monday, feedback deadline.
Right. Okay.
Chance to be heard.
Good.
Herding cats.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Stan, just for a sec, Steph.